University. And he discovered he really likes police time. He operates on police time.
Hi.
Oh yeah, come on in. Come on in. Hi,
We're so used to seeing the same people.
I'm Wes.
Jonathan.
Jonathan. Nice to meet you, Jonathan.
I'm David.
Nina. I'm married to him.
Okay. Miriam.
I'm Shane.
Yeah, you've caught us on our last week of the semester.
Okay.
Have you read Hideous Strength before?
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
All right.
How did you hear about the group?
My brother came by here last week,
Oh.
and so I looked you both online, and
Oh, awesome.
I used to work at the Testament Library.
Okay.
Oh.
So
Well, you're very welcome.
I saw you on the community board, a couple of years ago.
Okay.
I never made it out, and then he reminded me about it. So
Yeah.
It's amazing those boards still work, because I remember 2 years ago, before everything closed down, like, Randy made the flyers and put them on the Drinkling's shop window. And we're like, how'd you find us? And you did. You were one of them.
Yeah.
Several people
I was
came.
walking to the gym, saw that there.
I was like,
He said
flyers
Chronicles
still
of
work.
Narnia, and I said, I'm going.
Is that what we were doing at the time?
Yeah.
That's when I
Narnia?
started coming, when you were doing Chronicles.
Wow.
We were doing Narnia. That's right.
That's good days.
Awesome.
Hey, Barry. You did make it.
Yay, you're here.
We heard about all your exercising exploits lately. I'm duly impressed.
Oh, I don't remember the last time I exercised outside of taking care of the cows.
Whether that's good or bad.
Oh, how much you ride, and how much you try to ride a day, and then
Oh.
you're
That is ginger race.
Lots of good stuff there, yeah. If you're prepared for it, it's delicious.
I was expecting just a little bit more,
Let me take a good sip.
not the bourbon. I think you'll really like it. I was expecting a little more, some kind of citrus in there or something.
Oh yeah.
It's one of my favorite ginger beers.
It's like taking a big old ginger shot.
I so rarely have any kind of like carbonating beverage, so it's like kombucha's the closest I get most of the time. So yeah, that's what we should.
I drank that during my cold. Thank you. It's what got me over it.
During the great cold,
During the great cold in 2021.
2021.
Just
What keeps bringing
that's
it?
nasty stuff. Here.
Blackberry flavored.
Sounds like cough syrup.
Did you already smell it?
Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh,
blackberry fruit.
Terry's in.
There you go. You can have that.
Yeah, go for it, man.
He's been trying to get rid of it. So Randy took one. Now you got the other.
I have a whole bottle of peach at the house, like a 750 milliliters of peach.
Where's that gift? Oh my
That
gosh.
one doesn't sound like it would taste as bad to me.
It's not completely horrible, but
It probably still smells like chemicals mixed with bourbon.
yeah, it's like the peach flavor that you're like, I didn't really want that. I just,
That's the thing about those bourbon balls that these two old ladies made and gave them to Sue's Pharmacy. They were downtown, and I just happened to be in there at the time. Dr. John offered me one, and it's like, damn, that's pretty good.
Good bourbon ball, it's hard to beat.
yeah, concur.
This is the strangest ginger beer. When I say strange, like this feels like the most authentic version of ginger beer.
I think it's basically just ground up ginger
Yeah.
and water.
It tastes like that. I'm like, let's see here.
It's perfect.
Sugar, ginger root,
Ginger is good for the lungs,
ginger flavoring,
respiratory system.
natural flavorings,
Okay, well, I gotta pull my toes up there.
Hey, help me.
I need a little lime
Cough
in here.
like every 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, really bad. When you think COVID was bad, I was like, all the time.
What was it?
Coffee used to have.
Oh, the never-ending talk.
Thank God for ginger, man.
Until he started doing ginger and turmeric.
I'm telling you,
It's good stuff.
plants.
God's natural medicine is so
Plants
good.
are good.
plants are good.
They're very good. I just even learned about oregano.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And that's one of those things, you find out something about food, it's anti-cancer, and so is cabbage. And there was a couple others. I think turmeric might have been one of them. anti-cancers. But it's like with people these nowadays, I mean, cancer. I mean, I've had my brother was killed by cancer. Her mother was killed by cancer. And it's like, man, if we ate better and ate plant food,
Yeah, only about 5%.
such as those ones that are anti-cancerous, God,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have to rely so much on the pharmaceuticals. You
Mhm.
know, pharmaceuticals aren't going to promote something like that because they can't make any money.
That is a true story.
Fermented foods is just something we've lost in the last, I don't know,
Yeah.
50, 60 years. And I think when you eat more of those, you tend to see differences in your
We need to do more of that.
That's what I do with my garlic and ginger.
Yeah.
It's two separate jars, and I put garlic in one, ginger in the other, and I top it off with honey.
I think it was the American Cancer Society that said like I think it was about 5% of cancer is like genetic, and then the rest is outside influences. And I'm like, that should really make all of us want to make lifestyle changes because we all kind of feel like, oh, it's just it's just what we're in for. We can't stop it. And
Yeah.
like, oh, there's
When we lived up in northwest Kansas, there were all sorts of people that got cancer up there. And come to find out that they attributed a lot of it. A lot of locals attributed it to the nuclear testing they used to do in Colorado.
Aaron Brockovich,
And-
man. Remember that movie?
To them,
Yeah, but there was two big hog farms out there.
yeah, they're also to be
I think this is what contributed.
What farm?
hog farms.
farms.
You know those ones where they have thousands of hogs all in
Oh, yeah,
confined
yeah.
space and the
Yeah.
Dirty hog farming.
the dirty
Yeah.
hog farming, not the stuff like what my dad did.
When you go to see like a farm like that, like a chicken farm, or even a cow farm, we drove past a lot of them in California. You see them all crammed in there like that. And like, who on earth could think this is a good idea?
Mm-mm.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, you have to divorce yourself from the situation if you're like you have to like physically and mentally discipline yourself to not be disturbed by it. And like, so if that's the case, then you would think that it would, make more sense. But then you offer people who are in trouble a way to make money. And
Well, we take food for granted, really. I mean, I'm hungry, and I go eat. And if we pray, we say, may this nourishment fill our bodies, give us energy. And that's about as far
And then we
as
should
it
be like, and
goes.
please don't let us die because of it.
And then, but if we just, knew what some of these foods did, I think we'd make different choices.
I do not know if I like this.
really,
It's like I'm still drinking because I want it, but also at the same time, it's like
You'll acquire a taste to it.
there's no.
Soon you'll just be
I need
craving
some citrus punch in there or something. Because it's sweet. It's not like it's not sweet. It's just very gingery. All right.
it. Limes over
That hideous strength. By the way, we do need to make sure we get out by 8:30 today. Because we got to make gingerbread houses tonight.
All right, so I'm gonna run a bit of
Garrett's
a.
gonna leave tomorrow morning, and it's like the promise of gingerbread houses and my parents and the kids. So my mom's like, "Will you be home by 9?" I'm like,
Maybe. I'll try to promise. I'll think about promising. I'll consider a promise, but. All right,
Is
so.
there anything like, are you going to come? Oh, I might.
Right. I could. I might could.
You're going to do it.
I'm not good.
All right, so this will be the final installment of that hideous strength. And did everyone finish the book?
not quite.
You've read it.
You've read it before.
I don't
Okay.
have my copy with me.
All right, so there are things that I have, but I just want you guys to take off and just give me your opinions, like what happened, what did you see this coming, what did you think about it, what did you pick up on, what hit you, what didn't hit you, what you like, what you didn't like, and then we'll just from there we'll branch out.
The part where Dumbledore showed up was really weird.
That was the best part, though.
I will.
Darth Vader.
I will say,
Sort of strange.
sometimes when I picture Wither, I picture Dumbledore.
Really? Oh,
How
man.
dare
It's the
you.
last thing.
I know.
How
But-
dare you?
The robes
No, you're
and
not
the
allowed
beard
to
and stuff,
Dumbledore
and
into
sometimes
Wizard.
it pops into my head, like the original Dumbledore, like the first Dumbledore.
Like,
Nope.
Not Gambon, the other
Yeah,
guy.
yeah, the other guy.
Yeah.
Which they're both were great, but
Richard Harris.
Yeah, Richard Harris.
well, you need to stop.
And the
thinking that thought.
I can't get the waddles flopping out of my mind.
I think we need to exercise that for me a little bit. What was that? Too near the mark. No, it's interesting. It's funny. It's actually funny because I've always, I think this last time reading through, I didn't realize that Wither was supposed to have a beard until this last time, and I'd always,
Does
for
he
some
have a beard?
reason, pictured him clean shaven.
I assume, did they describe him with a beard?
I don't know. I think there was a couple physical descriptions
Yeah.
this time around that I was confused by. I'm not sure if it's
Frost is the one with the. Name?
The pin's name.
Yeah.
Yeah. On his,
Oh,
on-
this. I'm like with the Bonfie's
No,
name.
no, that's but I think doesn't they talk about he has a pointed goatee?
Yeah,
as
was
well?
that
Yeah.
was that Frost?
Yeah, in the pin's name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's
But
right.
Wither, this is someone Wither having a beard.
Did Wither have a beard?
I'm almost certain that he had a beard. I'm going to look it up.
Their interactions in the book are just weird.
Frost and Wither?
Yeah.
It was very strange. I was reading
Was it
this
the time
last
when they
bit.
start fighting
Yeah.
or
Like,
whatever they're
so
doing?
close they're about to kiss.
I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what is
Like,
happening?
You describe it as that. Like, they're about to kiss kind of thing. I'm like,
Yeah, you're picturing it too. You're
Yeah,
like, what does that look like? Like,
yeah.
So what's he pulling at there? If you look at Hardcastle and all this stuff, what's
I'm not gonna. I don't ruin this.
oh, no, I don't think he's saying they're. What do you mean?
no? What I'm saying is there's perversion.
No. I don't. I'm saying me personally. I don't want to
Oh.
step in there and steal it.
Oh.
Yeah, just saying that there's that
Yeah,
that this kind of
Hardcastle's
thinking leads to
definitely-
perversion,
Oh, yeah.
and so nothing would be off the table, right? This that everything on St. Anne's is being sanctified and refined in that direction for true purpose. And this over here, we're losing meaning, and when you lose meaning, all bets are off.
Yeah.
And so I think he's alluding to the fact that these things could happen.
You also have this competitive spirit between the two of them that's like almost antagonistic at times.
Yeah.
I think that's another part of it too. It's just like, the minions of evil are even at war against one another, which is kind of like almost the drawing a line to the orcs.
Yeah.
In Middle Earth, it's just very much like they kill each other all the time when they get mad. And it's basically the same thing here. It's just that they try to poo-poo the other at first, and then they end up doing, then they end up going for death. So it's really interesting.
So how many people were actually in the inner ring, the inner sanctum of the NICE of Belbury? Like who had there's actually a phrase where they realized that there's only a couple of people who are
kind of.
Wither and Frost.
Wither and Frost, and their initiates are Strake and Studdick.
Yeah.
Although didn't the Italian dude
Philostrato?
didn't he have some part of it at one point? Did he pop in there?
He did, but he wasn't even in on the outs. He wasn't in on everything. He didn't know about the macros.
He was just
and all
going for reanimation stuff.
that. Yes, that's what he was.
Yeah.
He was all scientific, and so as far as the inner ring, it was literally only. And then even Frost himself says, heck, even if you bring Merlin back, I'm probably more more beneficial to the macrobes than even Merlin is. So even if Wither gets here, I'll take Wither, I'll take Merlin, I'll take them all out. And you go, oh. And that is what happens when you go down that road. That is behind enemy lines. There is that, like you said, the orcs fresh meat, right? And that's you're at the top until you're not. And that's and so I think that's a great contrast.
Topic of mine.
Right. So what else hit you guys, or what else did you guys, something that you're like, this is awesome, I love this part of it?
Is it something we have to love?
No, I was just saying something that's powerful.
The dinner party.
Yes.
The dinner party.
That's what I was going to talk about too. Remember the dinner party? I mean, like, we were talking about this last week. We were talking about the. Oh, you weren't here last week either, were you? Because Caitlin was here and she hadn't read the last part.
So we couldn't talk about the dinner party.
It was like, oh, we couldn't talk about the dinner party,
So
but
which
like.
dinner party are you referring to? The one at St. Anne's or the one at...
Oh no, the bad
The
one.
Belbury.
The bad one.
There is technically kind of one at St.
Yeah,
Anne's.
that's
They're all
true.
sitting downstairs and then they go super...
It's not
Let's
bad.
see,
They're
Heather.
just having a great
Yes.
time. But like
That's like a party.
That's like they're high, but
Yeah.
but
They're tripping.
the dinner party at the other place, yeah, that's like. I mean, it was like I was trying to imagine it in like movie form. I'm like, this is like
Yeah.
straight up
Oh,
horror.
that's all I was picturing in my head.
It's gore, like
It's gore.
bodies everywhere. And I'm trying to imagine who are the people that got out of the house, managed to get out of that room. 'Cause, you know, they're like some of them escaped, and then you have just all these animals.
Featherstone.
Featherstone gets out.
Yeah.
Of course, he doesn't get out in the end.
Who?
Featherstone.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Does he get swallowed by the earth or something?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I agree with Caitlin. He's my favorite villain in the book. I really like him for some reason. He's an
feel like
opportunist. I think I like
He
that.
doesn't feel like a villain. He feels like
He's he's slimy.
he's just a manipulative,
Yeah,
charming,
he's just out for
a
himself.
charming, manipulative jerk. I don't know.
He's the most petty kind of villain.
Yes, he is a petty villain.
Smarmy.
Smarmy.
All right, so they're at the dinner party. What was it at the dinner party? What this was it just the outright gore that you're like, Lewis is capable of this? Now this is pre-Narnia, so this
This is pre-Narnia.
is this some recess stuff that's coming out that he's been suppressing? He's letting all this come out from his
But it's
younger
after
days.
the war.
After the war, yeah.
So
It's after the war.
It's right after the war. He probably started reading it during the last year, writing it maybe during the last year of the war because it was published in 46.
Yeah.
46?
I think he was writing it during.
Yeah, so and he's already seen combat. And
You know, it's
seen the
interesting.
evil
That's
men.
that's what I'm. Yeah, that's what strikes me so strange about the whole thing. Like, and his proclivity to write battles, because a guy who sees like that kind of combat, and World War I was horrifying by all accounts, and is still writing like battle sequences and like really crazy stuff. Like in this
Yeah.
one, like into
Everyone's
his.
dropping acid.
It
And
might be
like,
his way of processing.
it might just be his way of processing. I don't know. Like maybe he just didn't talk about it elsewhere.
Oh, I
'cause
bet he didn't talk about
he
it.
he doesn't mention it much at all in any of his work. I don't think I can.
It's not in his
one.
journal. It's not
I feel like
really
most
anywhere.
men at that time didn't talk. My grandfather
No,
never
he
talked
didn't
about
talk
war.
about it.
They just said it happened, and then he's British on top of that, so it's like
Yeah.
we don't talk about our feelings at all.
Yeah.
So
And there was a big stigma on mental health in general at that time, especially in that part of the world.
right.
But like, so I do wonder, like, yeah, if it's just him, just like, I don't know, like let some of this nastiness out.
Yes.
Just put it into a page instead of like letting it boil inside. But I don't know.
Which if it keeps him sane.
Yes.
Work hard to him.
Can you call Lewis sane? I think he's insane in the best kind of way.
Right. I wouldn't say like he's not normal
Yeah.
in that sense. So what was your what were your feelings about Jewel, the head? The director.
The fake head.
Oh, the fake head. I forgot. I didn't get to that part again. I blocked him out.
That basically shows up at the dinner party.
It's because he's the one that starts the whole thing. Is he stands up and he starts talking about vicissitudes of the throwing down the gauntlet of the past, and and all this, and they're like, what's? And everybody's paying attention to what he's saying, and that's the worst kind of attention to be paid at those meetings. Like one lady starts going hysterical, laughing, and she can't stop. And Wither's like, I'll give him 2 more minutes. And he's like, oh, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have given the 2 extra
But then
minutes.
he gets up to speak.
And then he can't say anything.
Everyone's got gibberish. It's so fun. I'm like, this is the best. Finally.
It's an interesting depiction of the Tower of Babel for sure.
Reverse Tower of Babel. Well, that's what they said though. That Merlin had put a Babel charm on him.
And what was it? Because that's very important.
What do you mean? What was it?
What was the spell he put on them? What did he say?
I
Oh,
didn't get to that part this time.
Oh, where was that? It's gotta be in here somewhere.
Babylonium Profundus.
That's it. How did you know? I did like how
Chapter
that.
one, like just like that.
I did like how Jewel was talking and Featherstone's like, God. Every time Jewel said something,
Yeah.
he was like, you hear he's like, and Featherstone says, God, just like that, and you go, oh, because and the only person who could talk to Jewel and make Jewel feel special was Wither, because he had that way of saying nothing and making you seem like he's saying something. But there's this. I'll get to it as well. I can't save on this one, so I just have to go look for it. Wither says, and the gross anachronism as to trust the cavalry for salvation in modern war. He's drunk, thought Frost. The Madrigor of Versajuice must be the Talthibinized. Like, what is going
I
on?
think you just had a bot bunch if I'm just writing a bunch of nonsense.
Yes. But there's so in essence, what the spell that Merlin cast is, they chose not to retain the word of God in their knowledge, and so they also lost the word of man. And you go, whoa, that's pretty heavy. I mean, that's because that is.
It's in part the biblical theology of Babel.
Yes.
Right. Effectively, we can be like God. We can build what we need to achieve God's status.
And we don't need him.
Yeah. Which is then it's just a recycling of the garden theme just over and over again. But yeah, this one in like terms of just. I like this part too. I think for me it's really interesting because it's kind of like when humanity reaches that point where they feel that they actually do not need God anymore. God has the obliging habit of just stepping out of the way and letting them fall flat on their face. It's just like, okay, I'll remove my presence, and then it's just all goes to hell.
I think that's brilliant. That's brilliantly put. That's exactly what you see happening here, and that's what he does, because he says that he pulls back his protection sometimes. He even did that with Job in the Old Testament. He pulls back just a little bit, and then you realize it's like the little kid who says, on your shoulders, look how tall I am. I can do all this, and it's like when you let me set you on the ground, then suddenly you can't. You don't have that ability, or we think we have all of this autonomy until we realize how much of our life actually is conditioned and involuntary. And we have semi-autonomy. We don't have, and if we had autonomy, it would be impossible to live if we had full autonomy. And so we see this, and it's the thing that, like Dave said, God just goes, we just pull just for a brief second. I'm going to show you what you guys would be if I pull back meaning, if I pull back language from you and let you have you want your own language? Here, have your own language. I said I've been formulating this for a while, but from what I've seen, evil always gets its way. It always gets what it wants, but it's never what it thought that it was. I go back to the scripture again. If the prince of this world had known who the Son of God was, they would not have crucified him. They would not have crucified him. That's what they wanted. They wanted that. So if you all throughout literature, it seems like that the enemy gets what they want, but when they get it, they realize that I shouldn't have asked for this, because this thing that I wanted is a thing that's my undoing.
Gollum, yeah.
Gollum, yes.
Especially common in British literature, it would seem, yeah. Probably more prevalent than in American, because I'm like trying to think of like some places in American literature that would be the case, or wouldn't be the case. And for some reason, not literature, but Die Hard comes to mind. Where Gruber at the end is like, he actually didn't get anything he wanted, really. Except for the helicopter, which he did get, but that would have backfired anyway. But that's like the only one I could think of off the top of my head where that doesn't really happen in American stories. But yeah, very common. And Doctor Who does that a lot. I don't know if y'all ever watched that show, but Doctor Who does that all the time. That team seems to like it. And
I think we see it play out that the seeds are sown and they have to go to fruition, but God's not worried about it coming to fruition because He knows that it is the undoing. I mean, you think that they. I always think about they build the Death Star and there's that one little they build the thing that they want, but there's one flaw in it, and the whole thing comes tumbling down. What was holding this together, it's interesting, what was holding Belbury together was actually the inconspicuous fluidity of language is what held it together, is what allowed them to weave this web of deception was the fluidity of language, and that actually wound up being their undoing, was that language became so fluid that it lost all meaning, and therefore, in a society where there's no meaning, there are no rules, where there are no rules, there's just chaos. And I think that's Lewis played on that very well as the undoing of language in that. And I thought it was interesting that you can really see the character of Hardcastle. Because when she received the note said gibberish. And she understood that she was supposed to do something. And so she went and locked the door. And then went and shot Jules. She went and shot a guy.
I do remember getting that. Was she understanding the gibberish?
She just knew that, I'm supposed to do something, and so she walked over and got the doors to lock the doors on the way out, and then grabbed her gun and shot him. And then people were freaking out, and it was complete chaos. What about the animals? What do you guys think about that?
It's like the greatest revenge. They're all being experimented on.
Well, he definitely brings that back around. They're in Narnia for sure.
Of course, none of them are really Narnian animals.
Yeah, but he does have the Narnian animals do some serious damage in places.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the gore of this scene was the.
So they didn't get away with their torture of animals.
Yeah. It was interesting that trying to for this. There's a lot of different directions to go, but like the one that makes me most interested at the moment is, in particular, Philostrato's attempt to disinfect. That's his.
Wait, we haven't done all the disinfecting.
Yeah, and he wants to disinfect the entire planet. He wants to devoid it of life, like the near side of the moon, and then in the end, it's
He's disinfected.
It's just like the animals, the things that he was trying to cleanse the earth of, are just no thank you.
Nature. Yeah, you got that before me. That's it. That's exactly what I was going for.
What did you say?
Jeff Goldblum.
Jurassic Park.
Life finds a way.
But doesn't he write something on animals and outside of that Hideous strength? Does he talk? I feel like he writes something about his thoughts on animals and their place in the world or something.
He in some essays he mentions animals here and there.
He's a deep love of nature, that's for sure. I think that comes a lot down to his upbringing, and then also seeing it just wiped out in World War I. So.
Yeah.
Was it Walter that told the story about the cat? The cat. Do you remember that story?
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys may have read this somewhere, but Walter was telling us this story, and so a lot of stuff Walter tells is in books and essays and things like that. So He's out on a walk with Walter, and he sees a cat walk past him. Lewis stops, takes his hat off, and tips the hat to the cat. And he says, "So why'd you do that?" And he's like, "Well, I'm just passing through here. That guy's a pensioner. Like, the cat's been here long before I was here in this place, and so he deserved respect." And so Lewis takes his hat off to the cat because the cat, was like 20 years old or something, and felt like it deserved to be honored. And that's the kind of character that you get from.
It's like inside of. I mean, I guess he showed it sometimes too, but I feel like Lewis really was all the stuff he writes. Like, that's all the stuff that an old posh British man wants to live out on the outside. It's like tips his hat to the cat, but I wonder who he would do that around. And
Now, my favorite animal story is Mr. Bultitude, when Merlin whispers into his ear, and he licked his lips like he remembered the salty taste of flesh and the resistance of things that crunch.
oh, that's
And,
right. When he was releasing him.
Yes.
Like, go eat some people.
Yeah, basically go meet some people.
Have fun.
I was like, oh, that is...
This is your moment.
He ties up all the loose ends, and it was just...
But still, I'm still trying to. I want to go back to the Wither and Frost moment. I'm just trying to imagine them. Like, what are they doing? It's not like they're kicking each other. They're like embraced fighting, sort of. Remember that in their office?
Oh yeah,
Like,
well it's
what?
like, have you ever seen like old Star Trek, like first original series stuff, where it's like they like grab each other's hands and they like do this really slow grapple? Like, I'm imagining that almost.
That actually makes a little more sense.
I do see
Because
that.
I said to myself, like, I don't understand this fight. Like, are they fighting or what? Like, it's
Like,
just.
you
like
ever
they're,
seen
like,
kids wrestle? Like a fight, a school fight. Fight
like,
is what it
throwing
looks
men,
like.
Yeah, it's kind of what you imagine old people to fight like.
Yeah.
But it got weirder. It got weirder when it was like, I think I had a hard time envisioning it because I think it was just before that moment where it was they were so close to each other's faces, it looked like they were going to kiss. And then they got into their fight, and I'm like, I don't understand what's happening.
That scene, I was kind of wondering, who's going to transfer what to whom?
Yeah.
Who's going to be the superior and who's not, and who's going to be the one below, and who's going to impose his will on the other. And
Yeah,
that's-
I'm
that's
like,
what it seems-
who's going to outrank who here?
So could it be that they were sort of locked in as equals at that point in Belbury? It's like it's showing the power struggle, and it's like no one really got the upper hand in that.
They were interesting. I couldn't figure it out.
Well,
Yes.
talking about Frost is at the end of the chapter there about the banquet and stuff like that, where Frost goes back down to where the head was and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
And that whole description of how he had divorced himself from himself.
Yes.
It just scared me to pieces.
Yeah, that one, I don't fancy reading that again.
Yeah.
That part was just like, oh.
He sees the bodies.
Yeah.
He sees the bodies, and then he goes
Yeah.
to the car garage, and then he's like, nope, I'm gonna go back inside, right?
Yeah.
And then he just sets himself on fire. Is that what he does?
I don't remember.
So-
that. Okay, thus Frost, his
Yeah.
sisters Frost and I watched his body go into the anteroom, watched the Paul chart lit beside the naked and bloody corpse. Chemical reaction called shock occurred. Frost stopped, turned the body over, and recognized Drake. A moment later, his flashing pince-nez and pointed beard looked into the room of the head itself. He hardly noticed that Wither and Philostrata lay there dead. His attention was fixed on something more serious. The bracket where the head ought to have been was empty. He found a head, but it was Philostrata's. Still not asking what he would do or why, Frost went to the garage.
Garage.
Yes. Let's be British here. The whole place was silent and empty. The snow was thick on the ground by this time. He came up with as many petrol tins as he could carry. He piled all the inflammables he could think of together in the objective room. Then he locked himself in by locking the outer door of the anteroom. Whatever it was that dictated his actions then compelled him to push the key into the speaking tube, which communicated with the passage. When he had pushed it as far in as his fingers could reach, he took a pencil from his pocket and pushed that. And he heard the key falling on the passage floor outside. A tiresome illusion, his consciousness was screaming to protest. But he's divorced
Screaming
himself.
what?
Screaming to protest.
Yes.
But
The
he's
conscience.
divorced himself from his consciousness. That's just a chemical reaction. That's not reality.
Mm.
And his body, even if he had wished, had no power to attend to those screams. Like clockwork, the figure he had chosen to be, his stiff body, now terribly cold, walked back into the objective room, poured out the petrol, and threw a lighted match into the pile.
Yeah, he set himself on fire.
So he was in the garage. He had a way out.
Uh-huh.
He had a way to escape. And yet he went back into it. Because what did the head seem to want at the end when the Macrobes realized the thing was over with, Merlin had set things in motion for its destruction. So what is the price that the Macrobes wanted at that point? Blood.
But also the best defense that the devil ever had is making you believe he didn't exist.
Yes.
And eliminating all the evidence of demonic activity in a society that's like kind of on the tipping point of like being like, oh, none of that's real. It's a really smart move. So I think that's part of it too. It's just like, no, I'm gonna
clean up.
We gotta clean this up because people might figure this out, and we gotta keep working after this is over.
Because we gotta replay this again. We're gonna redo this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
this is the best thing about Frost. He became able to know and simultaneously refused the knowledge that he had been wrong from the beginning. That souls and personal responsibility existed.
It's like I see it, but I
He says
won't.
Frost saw it at the end, but refused to accept it because he'd been so.
he had that moment of clarity right there at the end. As he's burning to death, he has a moment of clarity, going, "I was wrong."
No, I wasn't.
But yeah.
Same moment he said himself that.
So there are three great psychiatrists that echo that same sentiment right there. So Jung, Frankl, and Peterson all talk about this, where they say responsibility is the essence of being human. And Lewis says it right there. He realized that there was a responsibility, and I'm a soul with a responsibility. And he pulled, what's the guy's name from Lord of the Rings? David. The steward of Gondor.
Oh,
Boromir's father.
Boromir. Denethor. Denethor goes in, pours oil on himself, tries to light himself on fire. Same. It's okay. The end's in sight. Things are coming down, and it's either bloodlust. I just want to cause as much chaos as I can, or let's get rid of the evidence, or both. Let's just get rid of the evidence and have a good time burning things to the ground.
It's a very pagan ritual.
Yes.
As Tolkien kind of mentions, especially in the books. And then, it's a very common reaction when powerful people lose power and lose their grip. I mean, Hitler, another good one that was probably very fresh in Lewis's mind. Maybe
Right.
If that had happened at that time, I don't know when he was wrapping this up. He might have finished it before, which would be interesting. But it's a very common reaction. But yeah, I think he definitely was going for the pagan thing. That's like a very, very common pagan thing to do. It's just like suicide. Everybody's coming with me.
Well, and we can look at Philostrato, and they all spoke about this non-organic existence. So, to the Macrobes, that life was nothing anyway. Like it was just you giving your life. Here's the thing that I don't know that Philostrato fully considered. He wouldn't be able to live in a non-organic, because he would be organic, and they would have to he would not be able to live in the utopia that he was trying to create. Creating a world that you would not be able to live in doesn't seem like that's like a smart thing to do, to create an existence where you cannot exist. And so it seemed like that, as Jung says, the idea had them more than they had the idea. They were caught by it and couldn't escape its grasp. Very quickly, what do we think about the attendees to the party that got either killed by Hardcastle or the animals or got trampled to death? What do we think about them?
Just like the random news people and stuff that were there.
Yeah. I mean, McPhee has an answer for that, but...
Who all?
Huh?
Who all was there when they?
I don't remember that part well enough.
Well, there is a party there, and there were a bunch of people because you hear all the chaos. People were trying to get out and things like that. So there are attendees to the party.
And they're not from Belbury?
No, they are from Belbury. And there's some media people there with them, but these are people who are a part of Belbury that would be members of the NICE or prominent individuals coming in because Jewel was going to speak, and they're coming in, and then nearly all of them, but a few lose their lives. Is it the Death Star? The construction workers on the Death Star and the
troops that got stationed there.
Yeah, the troops got stationed there. What do we do with people that we seemingly don't know their moral implications or not?
Well, yeah. It's an interesting conundrum for me that I feel like I've been wrestling with a little bit lately subconsciously. The idea of death, of innocent death. If you can call them innocent if they were there. But let's say, for the sake of argument, that they were. Like, they just showed up and they were like, their boss said, hey, go take a look at this and report on this. And they show up and it just all goes down. A death where you are running, screaming for your life, begging God to save you, and in that final moment, acknowledging Him in your plea for your life, is far better death and a far better life than going on in an existence where you slowly ignore Him until you die later on, and just walk slowly into hell. To my mind, that could be mercy.
Mm-hmm.
If it were me and I were not who I am, and I did not believe in God, and I got to the end of the road, and something's just coming at me, and all at once truth hits me like a ton of bricks. Mm-hmm. I would much rather die that way, and with going, sorry, I blew it, and then than living my life and slowly descending into my own version of hell. So that's, personally,
right.
But and I don't know if that's necessarily the best answer, but it's the one I've been wrestling with a lot lately. Is that in some ways, death in those situations can be a gift.
Can absolutely be a mercy.
And also, Merlin brings up that point actually earlier about Jane.
He did.
That?
Yes.
He wants to kill her.
It's I don't mean anything by it. It's not personal.
It's not personal. It's this is merciful.
I thought that was funny, the difference, because it forces you to dig into some other cultural mentality too.
Medieval death would have been completely different.
It's honorable.
Yeah,
they're a good deaths.
Yeah, it's a very Klingon mentality.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Klingon.
Or you ever see The Last Samurai?
Yeah.
It's this was a good death.
Yeah.
Yikes.
But we don't have that understanding of death anymore. And McPhee actually mentions it.
They talk about this. They
Mm-hmm.
talk about the good death in the kind of tables thing. It's just the idea of I'm happy to die this way. I'm down with it.
Well, they were if McPhee says two things to this, but one thing you're talking about, David. He said, "I'd hate if we died tonight. I'd hate to know I didn't get my hands on them. That I went down without even touching one of them." But then everybody else says, "You know what? Even if we died tonight, I think I'd be ready. If I got onto a horse, I think I could ride with you guys." Now, that good death mentality of what is a good death? A good death is better than a bad life in that kind of sense. So I think that is definitely there. But
they don't worship death and life the same way we do now.
Yes. Yeah.
Death is the ultimate horrible worst thing that could ever happen to any of us. So we do everything we can to stay alive. Mm-hmm. And here we see and I think Lewis talks about that in other books too. But it's it's kind of a reminder death is not in the goal, or life is not the goal to stay alive. We are here for a greater purpose.
But Belbury and St. Anne's were both offering a death situation. Philostrato's idea was inorganic utopia, that is death. St. Anne's was you might die, but there's something beyond that. One is you get to be a pile of ash for all eternity. The other is you actually get to go to Logos. You get to go to real Britain, and engage with King Arthur and oh, this would be a good death. Yeah, I could go right off into
They
the.
touch on the because I can't ever understand that mentality of how you could want a world where it's like there's nothing living. I don't even know how do you get there. It's like demonic.
It's
But-
because they're trying to end suffering.
Yeah, it sounds like the worst kind of suffering. And then but you have those characters, those little moments, like when Mark goes to the pub. The last time he's allowed to basically leave his playhouse, the pub with Curry.
Mm-hmm.
With Curry.
No, it's
That's
no, not
the
great.
second to
Not
last
Curry.
time he goes.
When he goes to the
The-
pub,
He goes to
who does he go with?
He goes with
Steve.
some rando. He's not in there
Not
for very
straight,
long.
but
Steel?
one of those other ones.
Yeah.
that
No,
reported-
he was
He was in
early.
Steele's department.
Yeah,
It's like
Steel, one of
some-
Steel's.
I can't think of his name, but
subordinates.
Cosser.
Yeah.
Cosser?
But he's, Mark is all of a sudden having these feelings. He's like, oh, this reminds me of when I used to hang out with my friends in college, and this nice cozy atmosphere inside the pub, and then all the trees outside, and this nice pint of beer,
Yeah, I started thinking
And-
this isn't so bad.
and the guy he's with is like,
Cosser's
oh,
like,
I don't need alcohol, I don't need this. This is rather the
It's
worst
unsanitary
atmosphere.
than
It's
you can beat it up.
unsanitary.
There's no joy in him living. Basically, he has no vice that brings him. Like this is a little bit of pleasure in life. He precludes all pleasure.
This is what happens to Bones. Did anyone watch the series Bones? Not a single person.
Bones?
Yeah.
I've seen episodes.
I've seen episodes, but I've
Well,
never
her whole
gotten
character is like kind of that kind of character. Like, love is a chemical reaction. Everything is a chemical reaction. It's not like
She's a naturalist,
yeah.
a true believer in
But
naturalism.
as she is introduced to people who don't believe like her, people who have faith, because she's an atheist, and people have all these different kinds of spiritualists, all these different kinds of people. She's introduced to. At first, she pushes back against it, like this is not real. There is no anything beyond here. There's just facts. There's just science. There's just this, and it's a great show, by the way. Fantastic show, because you see the evolution of all the characters. But hers is like, oh, love is a real thing, and I can't explain it. Oh, there's something out here that I can't explain. But yeah, there are people like that out there that are just like, I can't imagine living a life like that. Feels very cold. Sounds cold.
I've met some of them before. It's a very
Cold and lifeless.
sad life.
Eyes like sharks. So McPhee answers the question that we were wrestling with a second ago in reference to those from Edgestowe when they talk about innocent death. Because remember, I think Miss Dimble was like, or Miss Dennison was like, I can't believe all those innocent people would have died in Edgestowe with the earthquake. And McPhee said, most of the good people were already gone at this point. So you were left with people who, as Lewis would say, the door to hell is locked from the inside. They had already made their like a Frost, who was like so. In reference to that, if we go back to the dinner party, the people who were at the dinner party were those who had bought in, or had bought in to the point where they were starting to devoid themselves from reality. And in that sense, you have to go, were they innocent? Doesn't appear that they were innocent.
I mean, was Hardcastle really bought into the whole? To me, it just seemed like she liked to be evil and dirty. And
I don't think she
Politely
necessarily
looking at
bought
her.
into
She's like a serial killer to
NICE,
me.
but
They
yeah,
let
she
her.
was a dastardly enough character that she
Yes.
deserved what she got.
They let her
Well, that's
be
what
herself.
That's what I'm saying. It's like she didn't. She basically, yeah. It's like she didn't buy into NICE, but she was allowed to be her most depraved self there, and
Because she was useful.
They paid her for it.
Yes, it's the
basically.
usefulness of your depravity.
And I'm just
So
like,
those other ones, I would say, were also in there. We're probably in that sense. But I was asked this question one time about innocent death, and I said, well, I'm thinking of Romans, and I don't think any of us necessarily are innocent or deserving of life. Lord giveth, Lord taketh away. I don't know if that, because I don't know if I didn't give myself life. I don't think I can be the judge of when it's taken from me in that sense. But I do like David's idea that, let's say they have a Frost moment where they're burning to death and they go, oh, I've really missed it. yeah, maybe it's like God, and they call out or whatever, and there's that moment where, as
I've had pastors theorize that you don't know how long the moment of death lasts.
oh yeah,
And you have no idea what God can do in that moment.
well, there's the scripture that says, if I pay the worker a penny to work for 11 hours, and I pay the worker a penny to work for an hour, it's not up to you to judge the wages of that person. And so I've always I wrestle with that and go, yeah, because when that moment of clarity comes, the crossover between life and death, who knows? Like he said, how long that moment trends. I've been in moments before that seem to last for a really long time. Yeah, and then you go, oh, maybe that's one of those
God's
moments.
outside of time anyway.
He's outside of time, and so, but I think that's interesting that how Lewis puts that in there, and then he lets you wrestle with the deaths of all these people that they're unknowns, they're extras.
Yeah, and also too, like he even so goes so far as to point out how quickly conversion can happen in Jane's experience as she walks through the courtyard there. Like he lays out her entire thought process, and it takes up like a full page.
Yes, I know where
And
you
he
go.
says,
Yes,
but of course, words are slow. This all happened in a moment, and then her defenses came up, and then just as quickly, they were captive and gone. And so, like all of this experience just went, and then she's turned the corner, and it's over. And like to my mind, he's kind of basically making his point that you don't know what's happening inside of a person's head, even in the moments.
and I think we can even look at Studick choosing the normal and saying, I'm not going to step on his face.
Yeah.
As like that right there was a salvation moment of him going, no, I choose Christ. I don't even know what I'm doing, but there's something going on here, and I know he's helpless, and I can't be a part of that. And then he starts to. His chest starts. You see Mark's chest expanding ever so slightly throughout. But then you see people like Frost, who basically they have nothing but a head. It's just skin and spine. It's just like there's
Like
nothing.
vacuum.
Yeah, it's like almost it's like they're concave, is it?
Concave humans.
Yeah, it's the concave humans and complete depravity. And if you choose not to retain God in your knowledge, God will take away the knowledge of yourself even. And that's what happened to him.
I like in showing God's mercy in the last chapter there, where it has all it talks about we have naturally hardly any first-hand evidence for what happened in Edgetoe. We have plenty of stories as to how so many people came to leave it at the last moment. All these things like a message from a dying father, the pipes burst, so they thought they'd go take a holiday and it was fixed. Oh, I think I'll go off and I need to go over this down, I need to go over here. I need to do this.
Miracles of the mundane.
Uh-huh.
Some were a little more supernatural.
The survivors.
Their cat told them to leave,
Yeah.
I love that.
Was that one of them?
Yeah.
One had his donkey, another her cat say, clear as the clear, go away.
The cat starts talking. That does sound very Narnian right there.
Yeah, so you're like, okay, I will. I'm leaving no matter what. So have we got through the gore and the horror. I mean, both books, the Pearlander and That Hideous Strength. I mean, seriously, that's some serious horror stuff going on there. Mark says that the smell of blood and sweat and port and Madeira would haunt him for the rest of his life.
That room must have smelled so gross. Mm-hmm. Not that it actually happened, but it's happened somewhere.
Yeah.
In a different way.
Well, especially the blood and the fear and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Lewis experienced that in the trenches during
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do think maybe this was some cathartic writing for him to get it out.
Because it was literally, he's basically writing about a rise in a similar organization, with slightly different ideals maybe, but right after too.
So Merlin comes down and smacks Mark on the back and gives him a note and says, "Go home to your wife." And Mark says, "My legs just took off. I couldn't stop them for like 30 minutes." It's just, and then Featherstone, he gets in the car, and then there's a guy in the back driving down the old Roman road.
I love how Feverstone's still, even no matter what happens, he's like, well, this happened. I guess I'll do this now.
At least it wasn't my car.
My car crashed. Oh well.
It wasn't my car.
Oh man, it's so let's we have a few minutes here. Let's get to the to St. Anne's. What's going on there? Anything you guys like about that, or was that your least favorite part, or did you?
Well, it's interesting. I'm reading this last time. I feel like I've gotten more clarity on it. I still kind of find it as interesting as some of the other stuff that's happening, but I did feel this time going through it. I was like, I think this stiff upper lip, repressed British gentleman really wanted to kind of get a little charismatic and do some just kind of like lean into what would like just giving yourself completely over to the Spirit be like, and just really lay it into it.
Oh yeah, because it was
and wrote it
a
out.
lot.
There's so much going on there. I mean, I feel like every time a new planet came into the equation, it was kind of like, man, we could break that down for hours, but it was really interesting to hear him, because over and over again he played this theme of like they weren't embarrassed. It was like
I love
like
that.
all that like just went away, all these inhibitions, but like not in like a out of control drunken sense, but like in
Not in hedonistic ways.
Yeah, like in a completely controlled, just
Yeah.
my inhibitions need not be here. Okay, I just found that to be really compelling, and I imagine that too might have been a little bit cathartic for him growing up in that time period. I mean, for us, it's enough even just in our cultural context. We have a lot of things that we put on ourselves that are inhibitions, and, cultural norms that we don't even think about. But like for him, it's probably a lot even more, and in particular, in the circles that he ran in.
There's still some Victorian trappings that are there that are, like you said, these taboos that are deep inside the subconscious.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was really fascinating to me to read it this time and think kind of like him just being like, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to imagine what like true spirit-filled existence would be like, and he's just going to roll with it. That's just kind of how I imagine him writing it this time. It's just really interesting.
And the 7 planets were all accounted for. So any of the Wardians out there who read Planet Narnia, those atmospheres are there to take a look at. So, and it is interesting how they each one brought out a part of humanity more fully. Like you almost saw like in the Great Divorce, they became more solid for a moment. They slipped a little bit out of the Shadowlands. It's almost like they were in between the Shadowlands and in heaven. There was this place where they were in the in between, and they were becoming more solid from the translucent state, and they could go higher, further up and further in, and their language was higher, their wit was higher, everything about them, their love was more pure. Even, like I said, they weren't ashamed. They were never ashamed of these things that we would be self-conscious about. They lost.
That taps in also to the Green Lady.
I was thinking back to the Paralandra.
Yeah, Green Lady. She doesn't know what shame is. She doesn't know what it is to be embarrassed. She doesn't know what it is to. She's naked. She listens to jokes. She doesn't like. There's innocence because it's pure, and nothing's tainted that yet.
And which Paralandra is, what if God gave us and we accepted the thing that He had for us without the fall? What kind of good would that be? And so I think what they're getting, we're on Thelakandra here in the Silent Planet, we're getting a taste of what if the Eldils were present here? What would Thelakandra look like instead of the presence of the Bent One? What if we had the Oyarsa who was singing music of the spheres over us all the time? What kind of life could we have? And we're starting to see we could have this life. That's why the Holy Spirit creates in us a new creature. We become a new creature in Christ. We are becoming that solid thing, and we get bits of experiences of that throughout life. But if the Oyarsa was here, we would have like the Green Lady experience, I think.
And I think too that oh shoot, I lost it. Oh yeah, the whole time it feels like a dance, you know.
Yes.
And like and I think he's tying back into the idea of the great dance. Like this group of people is just basically like not even a dress rehearsal, but it's almost like a child's version of the great dance that is to come. You know, that will happen when beginning actually begins. If you're kind of referencing back to the end of Paralandra, you know, because the whole thing just feels like. It feels like a dance, but in the sense that it's all knowledge, all good things that come from God, just playing off of one another in this kind of just dirge, or not dirge. What's the word? Jig kind of thing. It's just really pretty to think about.
I have 3 things really quickly. We have 12 minutes. Did anyone find the Holmesian reference?
Oh, I heard it and I thought of you guys.
I remember reading it and thinking of you. I don't remember where it is now. Yeah.
What's the context of? He says the stories that would have made Mark ashamed when he was reading them 10 years old. He found bound copies of the Strand. He begins to read these old copies of stories that, as a child, when he was 10, he became embarrassed of and never read them. He went on to read adult literature, which was all rubbish, except for Sherlock Holmes. That's the context. What is happening to Mark right now? What is happening to Mark?
Believing in fairy tales.
He's having his imagination baptized. Like Lewis did with Fantastes. He's having his imagination. He has head knowledge. He has reason. That's been forged over the years. But he doesn't have imagination. He doesn't have that baptism, that imagination. So he is getting foundational. He is getting a rebirth. This is a rebirthing. And what stories are beneficial for you in a rebirth? Fairy tales and Sherlock Holmes. If you read The Magician's Nephew, he plays this out a little bit more because one of the foundational books that Diggory reads, which Diggory is a Lewisian character, he grew up reading Sherlock Holmes stories as well in the formative years. So there's something about the formative years and formation of solid people that does include Sherlock Holmes. So that's my plug for that. Okay, 2 things really quickly. Ransom says to Jane, more but not less, go in obedience and you will find love. You will have no more dreams, have children instead. Urindi Maleldil. And she goes and she finds, she goes into the cottage because the cottage is supposed to be her, she made this cottage. And he's like, no, the cottage is not for Megs. That's for you. You created it, and so you're going to go. And so Mark doesn't know, does she even want me? He's having that little thing like, I don't know if she even wants me. I've treated her horrible. I've just wanted her for physical reasons. I don't even know what it means to be a husband. I don't know what it means to be a man. He's having all these issues. On the flip side, Jane's having the exact same issue. She's having the exact same thoughts when they go into, and of course the director's trying to talk her down. And then at the end, Nina brought this up to me, and I just want to see what you guys thought of this. How if Mark did not want her, not tonight, nor in that way, nor in any other time, nor in any way? How if Mark were not there after all? What a great relief or disappointment, no one could say, was made in her mind by this thought. Still, she did not move the latch. Then she noticed that the bedroom window was open. The clothes were piled in a chair inside the room so carelessly that they lay over the sill. The sleeve of the shirt, Mark's shirt, even hung over the outside wall. And in all, this was damp too. How exactly like Mark. Obviously, it was high time she went in.
Yep.
And it was over.
And it ends right there. Thoughts?
I could relate.
I don't know how much I want to try to glean from it.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that there's anything to glean from it. I just thought it was an interesting, like,
Yeah, it wasn't.
way to end the story.
Way
It's
around
like
it.
it goes from everything that has occurred, which is crazy and insane and spiritual and demonic, and then it comes right
Supernatural.
back down to the normal,
The mundane, the
everyday,
ordinary.
mundane, beautiful. Oh man!
Which is exactly how the story what?
began.
Yeah. The mundanities.
Go figure, literature.
Full circle.
Full circle. But I think that can be pulled from that in the sense of what I took away from it was she had nothing to worry about because it was the Mark that she knew. All the good things about Mark, all the idiosyncrasies that draw you into a person. She knew Mark. Like this was Mark. It wasn't some guy she didn't know, the Belbury guy. This was the Mark she knew, and so it was like somehow she knew that it was high time that I went in because this was going to be different. This was almost like she could tell it was still Mark, but she had hopes that this would be Mark reborn, in this thing. And so she goes, "Yep, that's Mark. I'm comfortable."
The real
Mark. Yeah, the real
further
Mark.
in Mark.
The further in Mark. And she sees him like, oh yeah, I know that. That's exactly what Mark would do. That brings me comfort going in.
So what you're telling me is that tonight when I go home and make a mess and don't clean it up, that Janelle should really be happy? That's
should,
what
yeah.
we're saying here,
You
right?
tell her we said so.
Is that okay? Just wanted to make sure that everyone in here was encouraging me to take that home.
Yes, that is. No, I do think though. So there was a lady, Judy Dabler, is a counselor, and came and gave us a talk over in Oxford, and she said that she has a habit, an idiosyncrasy that she doesn't know she really did, and is really annoying to her husband. So for like 20 years, she'd go, "Oh, turn here," when they're driving. "Turn here." "No, here." And just always the finger pointing, and he's like, "I know how to drive. I've been driving longer than you. I'm a better driver." He'd always get mad. Until one day he asked her, he's like, Can you help that?" She's like, "I really can't. I don't even know that I do it." And so he started realizing that that's just a reaction, an idiosyncrasy, and now it's endearing. Whereas it could have been before something a little more, and we had Nina and I have the same thing. She's the navigator.
I actually literally do that.
She does point, and I used to get really frustrated until I realized that maybe that's just an idiosyncrasy.
Like, maybe she can't help it.
Maybe she can't help
She's
it.
messed up.
That's a deficiency. It's all right.
Janelle has knee-jerk reactions every time like something's kind of close, even though it's not anywhere near. It's just
Yeah.
and I'm like.
I'm like, it's a mile away.
I'm trying to just take it in stride.
Right.
It's like just the wife thing, because Laura does the same thing.
A woman thing? I don't know. Who knows?
It's this one.
So it's at least 4 women.
Four.
Would you all just for like the fun of it like to hear C.S. Lewis's actual voice for a moment again?
Oh no! It breaks the illusion for me. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. If you guys want to listen to that.
You've heard it before, right?
I've heard it. Yeah, too many
Have you heard his voice before?
I haven't. It's just the one guy that reads all his books.
Oh, no.
That's him.
Yes, that's me as well.
This could break a little bit of the illusion.
To say a good deal about prayer. And before going on to my main subject tonight, I'd like to deal with a difficulty some people find about the whole idea of prayer. Somebody put it to me by saying, I can believe in God all right, but what I can't swallow is this idea of him listing the
Adah.
700 billion things.
He's like a valley girl in England.
Yeah.
A dog.
He has the posh.
So posh.
So,
I remember when I first heard it, his voice,
He's
and
like,
I was
oh
like,
no.
that's what he sounds like? I think I was expecting him to be like, I don't know. It wasn't like he was Cockney in my head or anything like that, but like just like normal, middle of the road British.
The one thing we didn't get to, if we could touch on it super quick, is the difference between Logros and Britain and the Pendragon.
I was just going back over that.
Because that's something that I think Lewis, he always ends his books with these great dialogues on restorative and regenerative truths and foundational things that will sustain society and perpetuate the good in society. And he no different here. He did in Paralandra, as David said, it was the high church prayers and things in the end of Paralandra. He does the same thing here. He brings it in and brings the Pendragon in. What do you guys think about the idea of Logos? Is that there is an essence of each country. And there's two essences. There's the Logos, which is the higher, and then there's the Britain, which is in the lower. And there's this constant battle between the two. And the NICE, Belbury, was Britain trying to rise up and overtake Logos, which was the Pendragon and Arthur and the great higher up version. It's the elevated version. And so you have the higher and the lower fighting each other.
I like the part where he talks about if one is thinking simply of goodness in the abstract, one soon reaches the fatal idea that something standardized, some common kind of life to which all nations ought to progress. Of course, there are universal rules to which all goodness must conform, but that's only the grammar of virtue. It's not there that the sap is. He doesn't make two blades of grass the same, how much less two saints, two nations, two angels.
Yes.
So we got to be careful that we don't legislate ourselves into goodness because we'll miss the mark.
Absolutely.
Big time.
Well said. Well said. So Logos and Britain. Any thoughts, David?
Logos, you mean?
Yeah.
What are we talking about?
So the higher and the lower. So the essence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, I find it very reminiscent of most of his other work. It's very much back to Plato and
It's rather derivative.
But it's he loves playing on that theme. It's one of his favorite themes. It's just he loves the Shadowlands, real world, back and forth all the time.
And we live in between those two. And when the world is in great suffering, it's the earthly, the Britain rising up. And then what happens when we aim for politics and governance and things that are higher and things are elevated back up, then that is the Logos?
The audiobook guy pronounces it Logers, but I'm not sure if he's correct.
Logers. Yeah. Either or. So, but there's that. So he said, and it's not only Britain; it's also all these other countries. There is a. It's almost like there is a collective essence, and there's a collective higher and a collective lower. And when we all come together and pushing for the higher mark, then as a society we will hit this essence of whatever city-state or nation-state or country that we're trying to hit, whatever group that we've committed ourselves to. As a collective, we will hit that mark and will flourish. But when the lower is aimed at, then that will rise up and that will take us in a bad direction. But each group of people that come together to create a society, there are two essences that are seemingly warring to gain position and power. But it also could be Macrobes and the Eldel. It could be as simple as this is basically Oyarsa and the Bent One as well, trying to usurp one another in that regard. So, I want to touch on it because that was a big theme at the last half of the book. This whole battle between the spiritual side. We didn't really touch on the spiritual side of it until now. So I find that intriguing. I love, but it's Shadowland stuff, and I just love how Lewis he goes so deep with it. Like, I mean, you have to really listen and wrestle with it because it is red beef and strong beer, no doubt about it. But it's and so I listen to that over and over again, just like, how do I get the Pendragon? And so, who's the new Pendragon? That's the question. Who's the new Pendragon?
It didn't say, did it?
No. Any guesses who you think the new Pendragon is?
McPhee.
You got it. He's definitely the Pendragon.
Harry Potter.
Or Harry Potter.
See, I'm going to give you my educated guess on this, and then we can wrap it up. My educated guess is Belbury wanted Mark for a reason, not just because of the articles, right? There was something that they saw in him that he could be great. beyond Wither. I mean, Frost. They all saw something in him. They wanted Jane, but they also wanted Mark for other reasons. There was something in there, and so I think maybe Mark will wind up being the Pendragon. And Jane or their child will wind up being the Pendragon.
Let's go with that, because God forbid it's Mark. The guy's an idiot.
Well, you're right. He's an idiot, but now he's a reborn. He's a redeemed idiot.
I know. It's just,
The world is full of redeemed idiots.
It just seems like he's the kind of dude to walk straight into a wall and ask, "Where did this come from?" That's just
Right. And so maybe there needs to be some renewed aspects, but it could be. I think Mark and Jane have something to do with the new Pendragon.
Yeah, they might be their kid. I could see that. I mean, you
Yeah.
have to tell them to go have a kid at the end.
Because Ransom's going away, and there always has to be a Pendragon. And so somebody before he left seemed that they should have been named Pendragon if there wasn't one. But yeah, so I think there could be an argument made for Mark. I think there'd be an argument made even for Jane. Could also be an argument made for their son. Definitely not McPhee or Dennison or Dimble or Featherstone because he's dead. But
He was
all right.
determined to get to Edgestone.
He was determined. All right, so that wraps up that Hideous Strength. I can't believe we did all 3 books. I mean, that was actually pretty incredible. I think we did a fair job of wrestling with these. It's sort of an introduction to that Hideous Strength and all these books, because I'm sure we can go back in a couple years and dissect them again and get even more out of them. But this was a lot of fun for me, and we won't meet anymore until the first of the year. But I think it's going to be the second week of January, maybe.
Second or third, something.
Second or third week of January, we'll kick back up and we'll start with Walking on Water, Madeline Engel's book. We'll start with that, but we will have a party, a holiday party, after the first of the year. So we'll kick it off with a bit of a party, and since we didn't end with one, so all right.
The past book that we read is now on Netflix, The Shack.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's a good movie if you haven't read the book. It's a good movie to watch. But all right, well, that's all we have for tonight then. So further up.
Further in.